In a lot of my videos, I talk about my personal color palette and how it's impacting my style and my wardrobe. So on one of those videos, there was a comment asking how I create my color palette. So in today's video, I'm going to talk about why a color palette could help you with your style, how to build that color palette, how to use it within your wardrobe, and how to decide whether or not this is something that could be helpful for you. I built my color palette based on pieces that I already own, and it's changed how I shop, how I create outfits, and how I edit my wardrobe. So why bother with a color palette? A color palette can solve quite a few problems within your wardrobe. First one being decision fatigue, whether you're out shopping or in a thrift store. It can eliminate a lot of options. So when you're out, let's say you want a t-shirt, and a t-shirt comes in 50 colors, and that's overwhelming. You have 50 things to choose from. But if you go in with a color palette, then maybe you only have 5 or 6 colors to choose from, and it feels less overwhelming. It can help with outfits that don't feel cohesive, even if the individual piece is nice, but it doesn't work with the rest of your wardrobe. It could be the color making that item feel off. When creating outfits in your wardrobe feels difficult, it can give you that feeling like you have nothing to wear. So having a color palette can make your wardrobe feel more cohesive overall because all of the pieces work together in terms of the color palette, so you can focus more on styling, and it can help eliminate or at least reduce the feeling of having nothing to wear. And finally, having a color palette can help you be more intentional with what you're buying. I know for me, if I see a piece and it doesn't come in any colors that I think can work within my wardrobe, I won't purchase that item even though it's a piece that I like, because I know the color will prevent me from wearing it. And I know that there's so many things being offered in the fashion industry by stores and brands that eventually I will find the thing that I like in the color that I want. So I'm less likely to spend money on pieces that are not 100% perfect because the color is already eliminating that from being an option. So now that we talked about some problems that a color palette can help solve, I'll share with you how I created my color palette. So here are the steps that I took to build my color palette, and you can use these to try and create your own. Step 1 is start with what you're already wearing. This whole palette was born from me wanting to create a mood board about my style to give myself a third-party view of what I think represents my style. So I actually started by grabbing images of my own outfits and putting them together on a digital board. In this case, I used Canva, and seeing if there were any patterns. And this actually started with trying to find patterns within the styling and aesthetics that I have in my wardrobe, but I very quickly started to see a pattern within color as well. So once you've grabbed images of your outfits, and if you don't have any images that you've already taken, you can take an afternoon and take a couple photos of your go-to outfits, ones that you enjoy wearing and you love the way that you look in them. And then you're able to put the outfit images side by side and see if you can find any patterns in terms of color. Some examples of colors that I found within my wardrobe were mustard, oxblood red, maroon sort of colors, green, and blue, as well as cream. And again, I used Canva for my mood board and my color palette, but you can use Photoshop, Illustrator, a Word document, like anything can really work. It's just about getting the images together in one place and then trying to find patterns within your own wardrobe. Step 2 of creating my color palette was adding bridge colors. And for me, these are neutrals, but they don't have to be neutrals if neutrals aren't a part of your style. Basically, I use the neutrals in this situation to be an in-between color in my outfits. So if I'm combining 2 of my main colors, I'll usually go for a neutral to ground the outfit or be a little bit of a breath in the overall outfit. And so these colors for me are cream, brown, navy, etc. And like I said, it doesn't have to be neutrals. So if you are somebody who has a more colorful style, maybe your main colors are like cobalt blue and magenta pink, and your bridge colors are pastel blue and blush pink. So it's just about seeing how you're creating outfits and pulling out where you're using certain colors and then identifying where they fit in your color palette. Step 3 is to find your accent colors. So for me, these are in the graphics of graphic tees, colors that I use for pops, whether that's in shoes or jewelry or whatnot. And they're used in a small way, but they still need to be cohesive with the rest of your palette. Step 4 is to edit and arrange. And this is where I gathered all the colors originally and then I moved them around to make them feel cohesive and appealing to my eye. And this is gonna look different for everybody. Everybody is gonna have a different thing that they think is the most beautiful or the most appealing. And so all the color palettes are going to look different at this point. Like maybe you want to do from dark to light, maybe you want to do rainbow, maybe it's like neutrals and then brights. Like whatever feels the best for you is what you should make your palette look like. This is also the point where maybe some colors will jump out at you in a way that feels like they are outside of the cohesion of the rest of your palette. Like for me, when I originally made this color palette, I had this like hot purple skirt and I grabbed that color and I put it alongside the rest of my palette and I felt like it didn't belong. And so I ended up leaving it off the palette and I was like, if I end up keeping this piece, I'll add it back in eventually. But instead of that, I actually ended up decluttering the item because it was so difficult for me to style because I didn't have any pieces in my wardrobe that felt like they went with that skirt. And so that was like a true testament to how the palette was like helping me curate my wardrobe, because the colors that weren't working in my palette were also not working within my wardrobe because it was hard for me to style that specific color. So trust your eye and your instincts. You know what colors you like and what colors you like together, and you want this to be a guide for your personal style. I also want to mention that this color palette that you're seeing that's mine isn't every single color that I have in my wardrobe. It is representative of like tones of colors. Like I have a pukey green jumpsuit and then I have like another kind of warm green sweater, and they're not the same color, but I associate them as being in the similar color family in terms of tone and shade. And so I don't have like a million greens on my color palette, but I have a green that sort of represents the type of green that I want to stick to when it comes to the pieces I'm bringing in my wardrobe. So it doesn't have to be like every single color in your wardrobe, but I think that if you have a lot of light blue pieces, even if it's not exactly the same light blue, putting one light blue in your color palette can still do the same thing in curating your wardrobe and representing those pieces within your style. And you don't have to include every single color that's in your wardrobe in your color palette. In addition, I think that if you're feeling like one color palette can't encompass your year-round style, creating seasonal color palettes can be really helpful. I personally feel like I like to wear the same colors all year round, but I think that some people might love wearing bright, bold colors in the summer and then dark, moody colors in the fall and winter. And so taking that into account can also be really helpful, because maybe you like bright orange, but you only wear it in the summer. So if you see a bright orange sweater, you're like, oh, I like bright orange, but maybe you don't get it in that sweater because you really only wear it in the summer. So that's where a seasonal palette can also be helpful. But for me, a single color palette works for me year round because I like wearing the same colors all year round. And it actually taught me more about my summer wardrobe this year, which I'll get into a little bit later. So how do I actually use the color palette to get more out of my wardrobe, shop differently, and create outfits? Well, the first one is outfit inspiration. And I think a big part of an outfit for me is color. And so when I'm looking for inspiration for like a specific piece, I'll usually look up like red pants outfits. But what I've been doing differently these days is I'll look up color palettes for whatever color of piece that I am styling. For example, I've been experimenting with adding more red into my wardrobe because I really like how red looks on me, but I really struggle to style red with other colors. I really rely on red, white, and blue styling, but I really don't like how that looks. But for a long time, I felt like those were the only colors that I felt like worked with red. But throughout this past year of having this color palette, I would look up color combinations based on my other pieces in my wardrobe, and red would come up over and over again. I'd look up an olive color palette and red would be there, or I'd look up a mustard color palette and red would be there, and I'm like, okay, maybe I can incorporate red in a bigger way in my wardrobe and create interesting outfits with this color that's been hard for me to style in the past. And I've discovered some really great ways to incorporate red in my wardrobe. I love styling red with olive. I love styling red with mustard. It's one of my favorite color combinations. And so it's allowed me to experiment with new colors and evolve my style and my color palette, but in an intentional way, because I'm researching the colors in advance and seeing them in other color palettes and using those as a guide when creating outfits in my own wardrobe. Next, the color palette has helped me when it comes to shopping. It has allowed me to be really thoughtful and intentional about what colors I'm bringing into my wardrobe. If I'm looking at a piece and I think it's really pretty, but it's not in a color that I think can work in my wardrobe, I will automatically say no. And it's actually led to me being way more intentional in general about what I want to bring into my wardrobe. So it started with thinking about color, and now it's led into thinking about how I'm styling a piece within my current wardrobe with other pieces that I already have, which is something that would never have crossed my mind previously. The color palette has also really helped in terms of editing my wardrobe. When I first put together the palette, like I mentioned earlier in this video, I had a piece that didn't fit, and I ended up not putting the color in my color palette, and then I ended up decluttering that item. That was not an exception. That was the case for a lot of pieces within my wardrobe. I noticed there were quite a few colors that I felt didn't fit into my color palette, and then I eventually decluttered them. And what was cool about my color palette is it made me keep an eye on those pieces that the color didn't fit into my color palette, and so I was extra intentional about trying to style them and see if I could make them work. And it became very clear very quickly that they weren't working in my wardrobe, and my color palette was an indication of that. And now, having had this palette for a little over a year now, I can see my wardrobe falling more in line with my color palette more than it ever has before. And it feels more curated, and it feels more cohesive, and it feels more intentional just being in my wardrobe. And I don't even need to see my color palette side by side. I can just look at the pieces around me in my closet, on my shelves, whatever, and I can sense that everything is getting more cohesive and it's feeling more in line with my personal style. And it's a really good feeling. I feel like I'm in a boutique sometimes in terms of how cohesive my wardrobe is feeling just based on color. It doesn't feel like a lot of stuff anymore just jammed into my closet. It actually feels like my closet, if that makes sense. There was a time where it felt like I was playing a couple different characters in terms of my style. Like one day I'd be like edgy, and the next day I would be wearing like a floral dress, and the next day I would be more casual. And my style does still have different facets, but it feels like my style and just in different fonts, if that makes sense. So with one of my goals for 2025 being to have a wardrobe that is full of pieces that I absolutely love, this color palette has really helped me in that process. Something very specific that the color palette helped me with this year was to teach me more about my summer style and why my summer style felt so completely different from my style the other 3 months of the year. And some of it was layering and different styling techniques, but a big portion of it was color, because when it comes to summer clothing, as you may know, the fashion brands in general will make clothing in lighter, brighter, softer colors, and those don't feel in line with my personal style. So I'm wearing these pastels and these soft greens and these summer shades, and they don't feel like me. I love like a caramel brown and a burgundy and like a mid-tone cornflower blue, and that's not really an option. So when I discovered that I love like a navy in summer, it really just changed my perception of what summer clothing I need to be adding to my wardrobe. It's not another short sleeve blouse or t-shirt. It's about color. It's about giving myself these more deeper saturated tones to make my summer wardrobe feel more like me. It's helped guide what pieces will make my summer wardrobe feel more like me. And realizing this is going to help me when I'm shopping for summer in the future, because I'll know that these lighter colors don't make me feel joy and I don't like wearing them, and it'll really, I'm sure, eliminate a ton of pieces that I would otherwise be buying and then not wearing, because I'll be so focused on color, and there's just so few of these like deep saturated tones in the summer that when I do find the thing that's perfect for me, it's going to make a really big impact. So do you actually need this? I would say that if you have no idea where to start and you feel really stuck, a professional color analysis can be helpful. However, if you do have a general idea of what you like, this process can be really helpful in terms of seeing patterns and creating your own personal color palette. And I will say this palette should be evolving with your style. None of us are gonna be wearing the same thing forever. Your style should be changing with your lived experiences and with time, and so should your color palette. So for me, I just went through a no-buy this year, and I've decluttered over 70 items. So I think that in 2026, I'm going to look at my wardrobe and reassess my color palette to make sure that it's reflective of my current style. Building a personal color palette is about knowing yourself, so you can shop less, style better, and build a wardrobe that actually feels like you. Would you build your own color palette? Let me know what your top 5 colors would be in your color palette, and we can all chat about it and share our favorite colors in the comments below. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, make sure to give it a thumbs up so I know to make more videos like this. I love making videos all about personal style and making the most out of your wardrobe, so if you don't want to miss anything from me, make sure to subscribe. It really helps my channel. If you enjoyed this, you might enjoy my video where I go through the process of modifying 9 pieces of clothing through color removing and dyeing, so I'll leave that linked here, and see you in the next one. Bye!